Welcome back, it's me Lou, and I'm here for another action figure review. But today we're going to take a little sidestep and we're going to talk about customizing boxes. That's right, boxes, not action figures. So if you've been watching my videos, especially the ones where I talk about my custom G.I. Joe Classified series figures, for me, one of the joys of customizing an action figure is actually making custom boxes. For me, that completes the entire experience of what an action figure is about. For me, it's not always just about the toy. I love the package that the toys come in. The packaging is a lot of times it's reflective of the time period the toy comes out. I love graphic design. And the packaging says so much about the action figure. It's part of the marketing. It helps sell the action figure to you. Sometimes the packaging offers insightful things about the action figure, like maybe on the back of the card or the box, maybe there's a biography. Maybe there's a small little lineup of the other figures in the wave. Maybe there's some artwork on the box that's done by your favorite comic book artist. There's just so much about the boxing and the packaging that goes involved with the action figures that I think is really cool. And for me, it's besides making customs, I just like to make the packages for them also, because I like to display my figures and I love displaying them on card, and I always think they look great together, especially if you have a small series of them, or if you have a complete wave. It just looks really, really neat. So when Hasbro gave us the G.I. Joe Classified series figures last year, there were many figures or many characters they didn't give us figures of yet. And then I took it upon myself to make certain customs. And if you look at my videos, you'll find some of the custom figures I made, like Serpentor and General Hawk. But then for other figures, there are figures out there where I'm like, I don't really need to make a custom because a figure of that character already exists. All I need to do is just make a custom box. And such was the case with Sgt Slaughter. So if you grew up during the 80s, you'll know Sgt Slaughter was not only a famed wrestler that wrestled in the AWA and the WWF, or if you know him from much later in the during the Attitude Era where he's Commissioner Slaughter. You're also familiar with the fact that Sgt Slaughter was a member of G.I. Joe. He ran his crazy boot camp, and he all the weird misfit Joes went to him and he put them through their paces. So I really wanted a Sgt Slaughter figure. So in my head, I'm like, what, the Mattel figures that they produce for WWE, they're a little bit larger. I think they're closer to 7-inch scale than the 6-inch scale that's the G.I. Joe Classified. But I'm like, what, I think I could get away with using a Sgt Slaughter figure in my G.I. Joe display. So I went online and I hunted around and I found a couple of Sgt Slaughter figures, but all the ones that I found were super expensive. And they were the WWE Mattel Elite figures, the ones that were more articulated, and then they have more accessories. So I just kept on hunting and hunting and hunting until I found one that was reasonably priced. And the one I found was it was a Mattel Basic Sgt Slaughter figure, and in their basic line, the figures are not as articulated as their Elite figures, but I could easily look past that. I just needed a Sgt Slaughter to fill out my G.I. Joe ranks. So I purchased it, and then I forgot that Sgt Slaughter at one time was also a bad guy. And then I got the Sgt Slaughter figure in the mail, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, it looks perfect. He's missing his trademark hat and his glasses, but I could live without that. I just just wanted some representation of Sgt Slaughter in my G.I. Joe collection. But then I'm looking at the figure, I'm looking at him, I'm like, wow, he looks pretty cool. He's looking pretty cool. Until I get to the boots. And then the boots, he has the pointed tips on the boots. Now this was during his run as a bad guy. And then I'm like, oh man. And then, an easy fix for this would be to get a Braun Strowman figure and just swap out the boots. But then part of me was kind of like, I kind of found the whole incident kind of humorous. And I'm like, you know what? I know I'm going to not display this guy loose. I know he's just going to go on a card. And I can at least play around with the card and joke around about the fact that this is the bad guy, Sgt Slaughter. So I went ahead and just, instead of calling it Sgt Slaughter, it's heel turn Sgt Slaughter, because this is when he turns bad. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I'm running off on a really weird tangent right now. So back to what I was talking about. Okay, so right, so this figure already existed. All he needed was a custom package. So I took a G.I. Joe classified box I already had. I'm not sure which figure this was initially. And then I printed out, I went into Photoshop and I found an image of Sgt Slaughter. I believe this was from his, from the 80s classic, release of him. And I printed that out and then I cut it. I printed it on adhesive paper, which is essentially a giant sticker. And I made sure the dimensions were correct in Photoshop. And then I printed it out and I just plopped it on top of the original portrait. And then I took the same image and I blew it up and I printed it out. And I sized up the box and printed it on the spine. And I think I went to extra distance because I wanted to remove whatever name was here initially. And I made a new spine graphic here. And I just wrote a real American hero. It's just generic. So yeah, I made this custom box for my Sgt Slaughter. There was no customizing involved with the figure. It was more so about this customized box. And then I'm like, okay, I have a tray for the figure. I believe this was the tray for Roadblock. And then I took out Roadblock's gun and I had a spare Marvel Legends bazooka. And I just put it on the side here just to fill out the tray. Roadblock came with a pair of glasses and I just left that on there. So, I can essentially just say that's Sarge's glasses. And it's kind of a joke, to like kind of like an Easter egg, since Sgt Slaughter is originally a wrestler. I'm like, I'll just give him a wrestling belt. But this isn't this is not a Mattel belt. This is more of a generic wrestling belt. I believe this is an FTC belt, and FTC is figure toy company, and they make a bunch of like wrestling toys. They make like Ring of Honor action figures, and I think it's like Rising Stars of Pro Wrestling. I don't know. Anyhow, they sell like a belt accessory pack on Amazon. I bought that a while back. And I had a spare belt, and I think this is like the Steel Cage Championship. And I thought it'd be funny to store it on here. And it kind of gives this figure a backstory. Like maybe Sarge was like a cage fighter in a previous, before he joined the Joes, or maybe he moonlights as a cage fighter. I don't know. I just thought it'd be kind of funny. Yeah, so this is the custom package I made for my Sgt Slaughter. Like I said, this is a plain retail figure, nothing customized about it, but just the mere act of creating a box for him. It's like instant G.I. Joe classified figure. So now I can have Sgt Slaughter hanging on display with the rest of my G.I. Joe classified guys. And it's fun. I remember I shared this on social media when I first made it. And a couple of people actually thought it was real for a second. So I don't know. I kind of saw that as a big compliment. It's very flattering. So after I made this guy, I'm like, I got really silly, and I'm like, you know what? There's a Metal Gear Solid Snake figure I really like. Let's make a custom G.I. Joe package for him. So then I went ahead and I made a custom box for this Solid Snake figure I had. I found this figure, it was used, and I like this version of Solid Snake a lot. It's from one of the later games. So this costume doesn't match this character artwork, but the pose does. So this artwork was from the original NES game, the original Metal Gear game that came out on the 8-bit Nintendo, and I think even on before that it was the PCX or MSX. I can't remember the name of the home computer console that originally came out in Japan. But this is the original box art, I think, from the NES game. And if you're crazy, You'll recognize this as actually being based off the photograph of Michael Biehn in, I think, Terminator. It's either Terminator or Aliens. I want to say Terminator. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments down below. So like Sarge, I printed out new customized portrait artwork here. And as a cool little Easter egg, I included Konami, since Solid Snake's Metal Gear, and Metal Gear is produced by Konami. And I just called this guy Crossover Solid Snake. And there he is. And there's the artwork. So yeah, this is a sillier video. It's not so much about customizing action figures as it is more so just talking about custom packaging. So for me, it was just kind of a fun experiment. You know, I got to take a figure of a character that already existed in the G.I. Joe universe, but I wanted to make him semi-official, and you know, I just made a custom box for him. So now I could proudly display this guy with the rest of my mint on card G.I. Joe classified guys. So it's a placeholder. In the meantime, you know, hopefully in the future, Hasbro will give us a legit Sgt Slaughter figure, but you know, that might not happen just because I know that there's that Valaverse line of Action Force toys, and there's a Sgt Slaughter figure coming out there, so that might prevent us from getting an official Hasbro one. We'll see. But in the meantime, at least I have this guy, and I'm happy with it. And in my crazy imagination, I'd like to believe that at some point in time, Solid Snake from Metal Gear had an adventure that crossed over with G.I. Joe, and maybe he was invading Cobra Island because he was upset that, you know, Cobra Island was a Target exclusive. So yeah, here's my Solid Snake as a G.I. Joe crossover guy. So wrapping this up, you know, this was just a simple video talking about customizing boxes. It's silly, I know, but I don't know. I thought it was kind of neat, and I just wanted to share it all with you. So once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you found something insightful. As I've stated before, I love customizing action figures and making custom packaging. And if you haven't customized an action figure yet, I highly suggest that you do, whether it's a head swap or a simple repaint. I think the whole act of creating a new figure or repurposing the figure is really rewarding, and I think there's a lot to be learned from it. So until I see you again, take care and go out and buy yourself some toys. Later.